Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. And I'm excited because he was a guest on our show about a year ago. He's returned again and he's got some great new projects he's going to talk to us about. But even more importantly than that, we're going to dig into some classic Growing Pains episodes he did. He's just a wonderful human being as well. And I'm really honored to have him. The one and only actor, author, producer, Jeremy Miller. And Jeremy, thank you for coming on again.
Hey, guys. Glad to be here.
So, Jeremy, we're going to talk about some of your new projects, but, last time I had you on, I wanted to make sure we touched on everything in your career, but I thought it'd be fun this time around to talk about some of your classic Growing Pains episodes. And one that I really loved, Jeremy, you guys were doing exaggerated versions of your real life self before TV ever came up with that. And it was the Meet the Seavers, where your character, Ben, he, gets in trouble and he wishes, that he had like a different family. And it was so cool because you got to play yourself in a dream and Joanna got to play herself, but it was all exaggerated. So talk about how fun that episode was, because I really enjoyed that.
That was a blast to film. Shooting that episode, getting to break the fourth wall and really just have fun with the concept of a show within a show. To use a term now, it was meta before meta. It really was something people really hadn't seen much of. And as actors, that was a blast. I was the only one who really didn't get to play me. Everybody kept calling me Jeremy, but I was Ben. So I got to stay in character while everybody else was playing, like you said, an exaggerated version of themselves and, getting to run up into the stands in the audience. That was our real studio audience. And they didn't know that was going to happen until right before we filmed. So they got a kick out of it. It was just a really unique episode, like you said, and it stood out. And as an actor, getting to do something that fun and that kind of outlandish is really cool.
Right. Now, Jeremy, I didn't want to look it up because I wanted you to be able to tell the story, but who was the voice that kept talking? Like he had that deep voice and he's like, Jeremy, who was doing that voice? Was it the producer or was it?
I think that might have been I think that was our actual director. Right. I think we used our actual director over our normal PA system to do that. I don't recall if they had another actor come in and put the vocals in afterwards. They might have done that, but I believe what we did was we just had our regular director actually do the lines.
Right. So, Jeremy, one of the things I did, because I wanted to compare a little bit. So I would say Thursday, I think it was Thursday, I watched an episode of Growing Pains. Then I watched, excuse me, an episode of Young Sheldon, just to try to compare like the difference in the comedies. And one of the things that I see in TV nowadays is they go a little overboard with trying to be funny, where Growing Pains, they knew exactly right when and where to have like the funny little laugh track come, the lines and things like that. Do you feel like they're forcing too much of the comedy nowadays?
Maybe too a little bit. I love those shows. I'm a big fan of Young Sheldon. I love the show. It's great. But yeah, I think that it came more naturally back then. And maybe that's just a factor of a lot of the creativity is people are struggling with that. Look at film, look at TV. It's almost like all the great ideas have been done. So everybody's, you're having to find unique angles on things we've seen 100 times before. So we were building on, what Leave It to Beaver and, all those shows before us did and, the family sitcom. We built on that and kind of evolved it. And I guess it's what it's evolved to now is this kind of shorter humor, quicker attention span, but that may be just a reflection of the times,
Right. Now, this episode, Jeremy, clearly it was more, the whole cast had a part in it. I think it was Luke's birthday. And one of the things that made me laugh was, I'll tell you, that the character Dwight, if he would have been on a few more seasons, oh my God, just think of how the show was great as it was. But I mean, he was hysterical in those few episodes he did in season 7. But I love when your character Ben says to your parents, comes home from going shopping with Dwight, and he said, "Mom, Dad, I never thought I'd say this, but please get Carol back quick." So I mean, there was little things like that, but that guy, I mean, was tremendous. I mean, he was hysterical.
He was a great actor. He was very, very funny, and a really nice guy too. We palled around on set that year. That year was tough. We had a lot of new writers come in. We had new producers come in, and the show kind of lost its way story-wise a little bit, but we had some great guest stars like him, Leo, of course, Hilary Swank, and a bunch of other people. We had some really great guest stars who came on.
And you talk about guest stars. One guest star would go on to be on a successful TV series for 10 years. But really, when I first noticed her was Ben and Mike's Excellent Adventure, and that was Jenny Garth. And yes, I'll tell you what, Jeremy, that episode was just so funny. I mean, even what was his? Is it Casey? I hope I don't get his name wrong. The guy who played Eddie.
Casey Martell.
Yeah, and he was, he wasn't on most of that season. So when he finally came back for that episode, it was really cool. And I love how he says, Ben, Mike and I have never been that close. I've always liked you more, because he sees how cool Ben is. But that whole episode cracks me up, because all Mike was supposed to do was take Ben to get paced, and they go on this crazy adventure. Would you say that's one of your favorites you've ever done?
It was one of my favorites to film, definitely. I mean, it was such a ball, all of us getting to film at night, had to change up our sleep schedules, and we basically worked, because it was night shots, and we were shooting on location on the Warner lot as well as on Ventura Boulevard here in LA. So it was, shooting at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., Kirk and I just palling around, keeping busy in between shots, Jenny Garth and the girls. One of my favorite memories is Kirk and I had to be in that old Fiat, the convertible. And man, it was cold when we were filming whatever it was. I mean, I think it was like in the 40s or low 50s that night. And him and I were just getting so cold, and the girls were getting to sit in the nice new, I think it was a VW Cabriolet, and they've got the heater on and they're fine. So Kirk and I finally were like, get the hell out of the way. And we jumped in the car with them and like squeezed in. So we had 6 people squeezed into their car, and we're in there just laughing and talking and stuff, trying to stay warm in the middle of the takes. But it was just fun. The times we got to be kids, really be kids on camera, were always the best times on the show.
Yeah, most definitely. And I love the episode as well, where Mike has to write his English report and he's procrastinating. And your character, Alan Thicke's character, Jason, pays you $10 to sit by the door to make sure Mike doesn't leave his room. And I love when Mike's asleep, the parents are all pumped. They think he's worked hard on this, and he's wrote that's all he's wrote. And he goes, I spelled it right. So, I mean, I just think, listen, good writing makes good TV, and it was excellent writing. But the people that play the parts, and they have to make sure that they, do what the director's telling them to do. And I felt like everybody on that show, and I'm going to talk about some of the guest stars and some of the recurring characters, but everybody that was on that show, anytime they were on it, they just hit a home run, I felt like.
Absolutely. We had amazing casting directors who really had an eye for bringing the right people in for the roles. And I think, honestly, that's one of the things our fans connected with most about the show was our writers were so good at writing us as real characters. We weren't this overblown kind of goofy idea of a young kid. What you saw up there was a young kid or a teenage boy like Mike, or they wrote it real. And I think we were able to bring that to the screen, to be real kids, to bring some of that real part of ourselves onto the screen. And I think that's what made it feel like a real family and made the fans, connect with it so much. I mean, it's what I hear most about when I'm doing like the the Comic Cons and different things like that, and fans come up, one of the things they say the most is, I felt like we were brothers. I felt like I was watching my life. What you were going through, I was going through. What you were doing, I was doing. Fans related so much to our characters, and I think that's a big tribute to, yes, the actors, but how good our writers were at keeping it realistic.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Jeremy, you see this all the time. You guys are acting and you do it so well and it looks so effortlessly. And then when you see you guys outside of TV and they're interviewing you, you are kids. Like, I mean, it's amazing how you could go and just like be on top of your game acting. And then when somebody might be interviewing you, you could get a little shy because you're a kid. So it just goes to show that like you're playing a part, you're playing a character, but then you become a kid again once you're off the set. And
Absolutely.
That was something that's why I really admire so many of the child star actors, because they made it look so easy.
I always called it flipping the switch, because I got started at 5 years old, or 5.5. And I was on my first commercial set, within 10 auditions. So I wasn't even 6 years old yet, and I had gotten a commercial. So when you start working young and, you have good people guiding you, you learn to behave as a professional as best you can. I mean, I was a kid with ADD. It wasn't perfect all the time, but I knew when I was on set, I needed to, get my job done and do it as well as I could. There was time for being a kid offset in between takes. I mean, believe me, I've told you before about all the pranks we pulled on each other and all the different, we were kids offset. But as soon as you stepped on set, things were fun and light. And of course, Alan kept everything light and funny, but you knew you were there to work. Even as a kid, you needed to be a professional. And that's just what I always called flipping that switch. Is once you were there to work, you got it done, you did what you needed to do, and you carried yourself as a professional. As soon as that was done, you flick that off and you're a kid again. You have the same worries and the same concerns and everything else you had before you started.
Right. Jeremy, I was thinking about this as well. Being on ABC, and ABC at the time had many child stars, Fred Savage, Jason Hervey, Danica, Josh from the Wonder Years, and then a guy you recently did a project with, Danny Pinatoro, who played Jonathan on Who's the Boss. Did you interact with those guys at all as kids? Because I mean, you guys used to do the different ABC promos and stuff like that. Were you able to get to know those guys as kids?
Absolutely. We, being ABC kids, were all closer to each other than probably any other kids in the business. Because like you said, we had all the PR promo stuff that we did together. There would always be the affiliates parties and all the different, traveling you do together to promote the shows. So Danny and I always traveled together. Bryce Beckham from Mr. Belvedere, his big sister Tracy Wells on there, Danica McKellar. Fred didn't tour with us as much because he was their big star. So he had his own PR stuff. He was doing different events than we were most of the time. But Josh Saviano from Wonder Years, who played Paul, was one of my best friends back then because we did spend a lot of time together. And then you had other events where people would want to get a lot of child stars together. And one of them being every year, I can't remember which teen magazine it was. It was either Teen Beat or Bop. But every year they would sponsor a weekend down in Palm Springs, and they would get all the child actors that were, well known at that time and working together. And you'd pile on a big old tour bus, not tour bus, but, big luxury travel bus thing. And like 50 of us would go down to Palm Springs and get to go to the water park and go to the zoo and go to the this and go to the that. And they'd follow us around with their photographers to do like a special feature in one of their magazine's weeks. So we got to know everybody. I mean, the kids from, Who's the Boss and the Coreys, and I mean, everybody from every different network or movie, they would come on those kind of trips. So we all not only knew each other, but had a pretty close connection.
Right. And I always think of that Dancing in the Street promo that ABC did. And yeah, it seemed like every actor from an ABC series was in that video. It was really cool.
Yeah, I always loved when they did the kind of thing. If you can find it, it's hard to find. I've seen it pop up occasionally online. The year we premiered, so 85, ABC did their big, new shows launch, new season programming launch, and they did a half-hour show, quote unquote, on the Love Boat, where all here's the Seavers. They're this new family from New York. And I mean, it was just this really goofy, fun, and everybody leaned into it and had a ball. And doing those kind of things was great. That's where we got to meet, Alyssa Milano and Danny the first time, because their show was just being introduced. And it was a great way for us to get to know our colleagues.
Right. And I think if I remember correctly, both shows ended their run the same year and maybe on the same night as well. I
might have been.
Yeah. I do remember that 92 was Who's the Bosses last year.
Yep.
And I think it was Growing Pains. So, I mean, a lot of history there. But Jeremy, one of the real good episodes I thought you did was when your character, Ben, he overhears his father kind of say something to the effect that Ben is not smart, and Ben gets really offended by that. And he thinks that his father thinks he's a dumb kid. So you got to play a serious type of scene with Alan Thicke, who's a tremendous actor. Just talk about that episode, because we saw comedy, but we also saw a lot of, serious moments in that episode.
It was a really great episode, and it was really special to get to show a little bit more and to stretch a little bit more and to have that kind of close moment with Alan on screen. I'll give you a little tip, or not a little tip, little tidbit nobody knows is I actually got submitted for the Emmys for that episode, and I came down to the final 8. I didn't make the final 4 that they had that year, but I came down to the final 8 for that episode. And it was really nice to get to show a little bit of a different side of what I could do. And again, we just had such great writers that, they really always gave us wonderful material to work with.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up the Emmys, Jeremy, because one of the things that you never saw, and I think to this day they don't really ever give nominations to the kids ever. And I think that's unfair because, listen, we just talked about Fred Savage. He could have won an Emmy now the Wonder Years won an Emmy for the show, but he could have won an Emmy for the outstanding acting he did. Yourself, Kirk, Tracy. I mean, Tracy, that scene where her boyfriend dies from the drunk driving accident. I mean, that was tremendous acting. And I mean, that to me, I always felt like that's why I have a problem with these awards, and especially the Emmys, Golden Globes, because they never give these children any recognition like they should. These kids, should have got nominated for supporting actors at least.
It's incredibly rare, and yeah, unfortunately, too often the kids on TV get overshadowed. It's not as rare that you see a child film actor get nominated. It happens quite a lot, actually. They're the focus of their film, usually. They're the main character or a main supporting role. They're not being overshadowed. On the TV show, even though we were important characters and the kids always are, you often get overshadowed by a great guest star or, the parents or whoever, and you kind of are a bit of an afterthought. So yeah, it's a little annoying because you look at a lot of kids do some really, really brilliant work. Unfortunately, we were never pushed for many awards. We had a interesting relationship between Warner and ABC because we were owned by Warner, but we were on ABC, and ABC never really pushed us as hard as they did their other shows because they didn't own us. that's kind of the way it was told to me. So Alan was the only one who ever got nominations for our show, and I don't even think it was for the Emmys. He won a Golden Globe for our show.
Right.
But otherwise, we weren't really pushed by the network for the awards and things like that. And again, it was nothing I ever focused on. I mean, honestly, if it had popped up and I got a nomination, that would have been awesome. But it was never anything I was shooting for or a goal, or it was nothing I ever concerned myself with. I was just concerned with doing the best work I could with what I had in front of me.
Right. And I mean, that's how it should be, obviously. I just thought that they always kind of disrespected, you know.
And I don't know if it's so much disrespect as just you get overshadowed. You can become an afterthought when they're looking at some of the older characters and stuff like that.
Right. So, Jeremy, I want to kind of ask you a two-part question. Number one, the episode where the grandparents leave the four kids, I think 5,000 each, something like that, and Ben goes on a spending spree, which was hysterical. But I also wanted to ask you, because maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, to have somebody like Gordon Jump, who had a history of acting, he was in so many great things, and he plays your grandfather in the show. That had to be a highlight for you in your career.
It was. Gordon Jump was amazing. He was a wonderful, wonderful actor. And we worked with so many great people that were brought on our show as, guest stars or reoccurring parts. And Gordon was definitely one of them. He was a legend. And even as a kid, I knew exactly who he was. He had a connection to some of our producers who had worked on WKRP. So they knew him from before and really wanted him for that role. And also Betty, I'm going to blank on her name. The lady who played my grandmother on that as well was also a very well-known actor, or actress. And, we had Jane Powell, who was a legendary, 1940s, 1950s actress who played my other grandmother from Alan's side. And we got to work with so many incredible people. The tonsil episode, I got to work with Alan Hale Jr., and Annette Funicello and Brad Pitt and Heather Graham. And I mean, we have a laundry list of such just wonderful and legendary, performers.
Right. And you talk about the tonsil episode, which I think we talked about last time, but one of my favorite episodes, and it's a sad episode too. It's when the birth of Chrissy is born, when she's born, and you have that great dialogue. And I'm trying to remember his name, but he was in an episode of St. Elsewhere, and they had his character play a racist, and I could not stand the guy. The two episodes I watched, I couldn't stand him. So to see him in Growing Pains playing like a sympathetic character and stuff like that, and he played it so well. I love the chemistry you had with him, and
thank you.
I thought that was that had to be something that was special to you to have a scene like that with him.
It was. He was a fabulous character actor. Of course, I'd seen him in probably 100 things before he came on our show. And getting, again, to have more of a serious moment and show a little bit more emotion, and to do it with such a fabulous actor. He drew a lot of emotion out of me for that scene. A lot of that was him and just me responding to what he was, how much he was giving me. And he was fabulous. And I still love that episode so much because of Ben's journey and how at the end he really, embraces his new little sister and wants to honor his friend. So I that was an episode I was incredibly proud of.
Yeah, I mean, I get goosebumps just talking about it. But so Jeremy, I recently had Angela Sloan on, terrific person, and she played obviously she played one of Carol's best friends, a recurring role on the show. But talk to me about some of the recurring actors that you worked with that really brought out the best in you, because I mean, you worked with some great people along the way.
We did. And I mean, some of our best always came back. One of the ones who I'm still very close to is Patrika Darbo. She's a legendary character actress who's just incredibly talented. And she played 2 or 3 different roles on our show. And I think she first came on as a PTA mom helping at the carnival, and later on she became Principal DeWitt's secretary. And speaking of, the legendary Sam Anderson, who's starring right now on Matlock and has a IMDb longer than my leg. Just a fabulous actress and actor, and so incredibly funny and kind. And that was one of the things that not only did our casting directors find us people that truly fit the parts. I mean, they found us great people who were really were that role, but we got great guest stars. We didn't have divas. We didn't have problems. Everybody came in and blended well with us. And it was just always a pleasure having these great, talents on set. And most of the time they were people that we knew, before, like I said, Alan Hale and people I'd recognized as character actors in tons of things before. And then the number of people that came through our show who went on to be huge. I mean, getting to work with Matthew Perry, getting to work with Hilary Swank and Heather Graham and Brad Pitt twice, brought him on as two different characters because he was so good. Yeah. And I mean, the people that we got to work with from, like I said, The Office, the casting directors, our writers, all the way to every guest star we had, we were just very blessed to have just the most talented people coming through.
Right. And, I would think, obviously, the main cast you have a close connection with, but I would think some of the recurring guys, I mentioned KC before. Mm-hmm. I would think that you still probably keep in touch with some of these guys.
We absolutely do. There are a handful that I've been able to keep in touch with, and Leo and I still see each other occasionally at events and stuff, give each other a big old hug and talk for a bit. Casey, I actually haven't seen in forever. Him and I lost touch years ago, and I still think of him so fondly. Casey, if you see this, brother, give me a call. Hit me up on social or something. But yeah, I still talk to a lot of our guest stars who were reoccurring. Like I said, they were a part of our cast and our family.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, just so many great episodes, Jeremy. I mean, we could go on for days talking about so many of them. But what I loved about your character is he could be funny. And whenever he yelled, like when he got like freaked out about something, he was tremendous. But we saw like that you could play serious parts in that show, and you played it to perfection. I mean, you really did. And, one of the things I really enjoyed was you really had great chemistry with Kirk as well. I mean, like I said, Mike and Ben's Excellent Adventure or whatever it was, Excellent Night. I mean, it was just like you could see that there was a bond there. And again, I always felt like you had tremendous chemistry with the parents as well. You really did.
I've always said that because we were a real family behind the scenes, that came through on camera. And I really believe that. We were a very close crew, and we kept getting closer. I mean, as I've said, Alan and Joanna were very maternal and paternal with us. They did act as mom and dad when we needed to be put in our place or when we needed advice or, just to give us a hug. And Kirk and I were like brothers. I mean, he tortured me like a little brother, and I looked up to him, and we both ganged up on Tracy all the time like brothers do. We were a family. And I believe that really was a big key to our success.
Right. And let me ask you, Jeremy, I talked about Meet the Seavers. Now, was that Joanna's real life daughter? I know like for the set, the girl, her name was Ashley, and she said this. So, I mean, I just really like that. They kind of like gave the fans the opportunity to meet these people in real life, even though they were still kind of playing the Seavers, the way they acted. They were, it was their real life roles. And I just thought that like sometimes fans need that. They need to see how the other half lives like that.
I thought it was a very cool peek behind the curtain. And again, a little tidbit is the Ashley part with Joanna. That was actually taken from a story from our very first pilot. So Ashley had been on set and she didn't know me. I didn't know her. I mean, we're shooting the pilot. So this is my first time even knowing Joanna. And we're shooting the very emotional scene at the end of the pilot where I'm sitting on Joanna's lap and she's telling me it's going to be okay, that she's back to work and all that. And she tells me how much she loves me. And as soon as the scene is done, little 6-year-old Ashley comes storming up to me and goes, you know, when she's telling you that, she's thinking of me. And she storms away. She was so jealous. And Ashley and I are very close and good friends, but that's part of why they were making that joke with her in that episode. It was just a bit of a throwback for us.
Right, exactly. And, you know, we talked about Gordon Jump, and in one episode, obviously, they decided they were going to have his character pass away. And how is it, Jeremy, when you film emotional episodes? Because you as actors know it's acting, it's not real life. But I mean, there's got to be a part of you that, like, when you're doing this stuff, you realize that, as we all do, that life is fragile, things like that. Is it difficult sometimes to shoot those episodes when you know there's going to be a death in it?
For me, it never has been. I can't speak for anybody else, but I've experienced a lot of loss in my life, even from a young age, losing my grandfathers and my uncle and stuff like that. One of my very good friends. Those weren't, it was nothing I wasn't familiar with and nothing I didn't understand already. So it was more things I drew from because I had that experience. And I always look forward to the opportunity to do the difficult scenes, to do the difficult episodes, because it was such a nice change up. Doing the comedy was fun and doing all that was great, but getting to do something different was always awesome. And I looked forward to it.
Right. And let's talk about the series finale, Jeremy. I mean, obviously putting the show on Saturdays it's never a good idea because it's a rough night, but when
they announced that, I called Tracy and I said, so I guess that's it, huh? Now, even with that move and how bad it was, because we went, to give you an idea, when we were on Tuesday nights, which was, ABC's golden time slot for launching new shows, we were top 5 show.
Right.
We were still a top 5 show when they moved us to Wednesday nights because they needed that slot on Tuesday for their new series that were coming out. When we moved from Wednesday, without our quality dropping, but because they had us on against different shows on a different night, we went from a top 5 show to a top 25 show. Then they moved us from Wednesday to Saturday, and we went from a 35 show to a 70 out of 80 show. Yeah. So it was the kiss of death. And again, I have said this before, I'm not proud of the 7th season. It was really rough story-wise. It had our writers I'm not criticizing them. They didn't know where to go with it. It was a lot of new people. We had run the gamut of most of the unique and interesting ideas you would want to do with a family, and it just felt like we were really forced that 7th season. So that, I don't know, that I'm not saying I'm not proud of our work, but that 7th season, I always felt I felt that the rating was rather deserved, even if it was on Saturday night. I didn't feel as proud of that season. I didn't feel it held up to the quality of the other years.
Right. Now, I can't remember, though, Jeremy. Did the show get canceled, or did they just decide it was time to end it?
Well, I guess it's technically a cancellation. Right up until, even with as rough as things were going, right up until 3 weeks before we found out, there was still talk from ABC that we might be doing an 8th season. So our writers had written a final episode for the season, assuming we'd be continuing on. And then about 3 weeks beforehand, before the end of the season, they let us know that we wouldn't be coming back. So I guess it's a cancel. I don't know what you would call it exactly. It was at the end of the season. They let us finish out. So it wasn't canceled per se. It just wasn't renewed. And our writers had to scrap the episode they had written and come up with a final episode. So we took a week hiatus, we let them write, and we came back and we, said goodbye.
Right. And that couldn't have been easy though, Jeremy. I know like you weren't happy with the seventh season and maybe you were ready to move on, but at the same time, you worked with these people for 7 years, had great friendships with them. I'm sure filming that last episode had to be very emotional as well.
Oh, it was. And I'll tell you, I wasn't done. I mean, I really did want to continue on for an 8th season because I believed our writers would find their way again. Right. Like I said, these were new writers who came in. They didn't know us. They didn't know, they knew the show because of its history, but these weren't the people who had written our words and our life for 6 years. And that changed an awful lot. And I think they would have found their way. I think the 8th season would have been better than the 7th season. So I was looking forward to it. So it was definitely disappointing that we didn't move on for an 8th. And filming that final episode was really, really hard. It was hard to get through takes. Any one of us could start crying at any given time. It was very rough, and especially bringing Tracy back for that episode because she had to leave the show because of her eating disorder to go in to be hospitalized. And they did not want to have her not be a part of that. So they waited for her to get out for us to film it. So she hadn't been there for almost 6 weeks, I think. And having her back for that episode was even more emotional. So it was a rough one. It was a hard 2 weeks. And I'll tell you, when we finished our final curtain call, everybody except for Alan was ugly crying. It was because Alan just didn't get ugly. He was always cool.
Yeah. But you know what? I always say this, people are cool, in the public eye, but then I'm sure in his private moments, he broke down.
No, I know it meant a lot to him. And I know he was sad to leave it. That's for sure. I'm not saying that.
Right. And were you happy with when they decided to do the reunion movie?
Yeah, we were all very, very excited. And truthfully, we fell right back into place. We weren't on set together 10 minutes and Alan's already making fun of Joanna and I'm already giving Kirk a hard time. And we fell right back into our rhythm. It was awesome.
Right. And, that's the other thing, Jeremy, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing with behind the scenes, but I do always believe the media sometimes overblows things. I always felt like Kirk and the cast were great to each other. They got along and he was there for them. So when you see things like sometimes where they say he was difficult, does it upset you?
No, because, and this is well known, he was. For a couple of years there, he really was very difficult. And he had kind of cut most of us out of his life. And he was just there to film and go home. And it was kind of his way or the highway. He put it to our producers multiple times like that when he didn't agree with a certain storyline. And ABC, because he was the star of the show, basically caved to him every time. So it's part of why our writers and producers left after the 6th season. Now, Kirk has acknowledged this. We've all talked about it. I'm not running him down. I'm not talking behind his back. That first reunion movie, we were filming. It was day 1, and we're filming out in a park. And in Montreal, even in the spring and summer, the weather changes in 10 minutes. So we're out there and it's a gorgeous sunny day and we got all the cameras. All of a sudden clouds come in and it starts raining on us. So it's all hands on deck. Everybody's grabbing lights and cameras and trying to get things into the vans. And they pack all of us into one van. And they're like, don't worry, happens all the time. It'll be gone in 10 minutes. And as we're sitting in there, Kirk took the moment to apologize to all of us.
Well, that's great.
And he's acknowledged that as well. I'm not giving away secrets here. He took that moment to apologize for how he behaved back then. And, he just said, I didn't know how to be a Christian. I didn't know my faith. I thought I had to cut everybody out of my life. I thought I had to be this kind of guy. I had to do this. And I was wrong, and right then, as soon as he apologized, everybody it was all family again. It was beautiful.
Right. And that's why reunion movies like that are, important because it is kind of giving the cast closure as well. It really is.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great thing. And that's great to hear that he did do that. And, it just goes to show that one thing that everybody has to understand, that people are human and not everybody's perfect.
Exactly.
And the fact that he acknowledged it and took the time to do that says a lot about him as a person. It really does.
Absolutely.
Right. So Jeremy, let me ask you this. I recently saw a project, and I think you did one episode for it. It's called The Comeback Kids.
Yes.
And I mentioned Danny was in that with you.
Mm-hmm.
There were only 3 cast members, I think, right? That were in this.
There was about 7, but it was rotating through different episodes.
Right. Now, what is the status of that? Was that just like a short-term thing? Or
it was just a short-term thing. It did get some interest from a couple of the streaming networks, but unfortunately that one just didn't move forwards. It was never planned to be a full show, but the interest it drew some attention, and people seemed to really like it. So if it came close to getting a deal with a couple of the streaming companies, but unfortunately it didn't move forwards.
Well, that's unfortunate because it looks really cool. I mean, it would be something I think a lot of fans would like. So
it was a cool concept.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you also did a film, Awakening. Talk to me a little about that. You played Bart Fitzpatrick.
So Awakening is actually, unfortunately, we haven't filmed it yet. I've been attached to Awakening for quite some time, actually, I think since 2008. And it's a wonderful, it's a drama love story. It's a great script, but it has had its financing pulled 4 different times, all for economic reasons. In 2008, when the economic crash happened, and then again late. I mean, it's been a bad luck scenario because it's a great project, and we've had multiple people, want to fund it and do this and that. And then at the last minute, like I said, the economy crashed and the guy had to pull his money out to save his business so he didn't have to fire his 200 employees. It's like, okay, well, you need to do that. I mean, I don't want to make our little film if 200 people get fired and lose their, income. So it's just been that kind of thing with that project, unfortunately. But it actually looks like it's getting close to financing again. And looks like we might be filming in Ireland. So again, I'll keep you guys posted. Any new projects I'm doing, you can just check me out on my website, jeremymillercom. And I keep any new projects that are coming up listed on there. But yeah, that one, unfortunately, I'm dying to get filming on it. It's a really, really awesome script, but it's run into a lot of problems.
Right. And let me ask you this, Jeremy. Are there any upcoming projects in 2026 or even early 2027 that you've got planned that we could look forward to?
There are a couple I can talk about. I'm actually supposed to start filming a series in April that I'm doing some guest spots on. It's a reoccurring. None of these, unfortunately, am I able to tell you about or give you titles yet. Most of these are in production or pre-production and are under NDAs, so I can't really give details. But one I have finished already is a 2nd season of a new series for BET streaming. It's called Angel. I play the lead detective's partner. The lead detective is the legendary MC Lyte, legendary R&B artist who actually is an amazing actress as well. And I don't know when that's going to be out. Originally, it was supposed to come out on BET streaming in, I want to say, last August, and there were some holdups and something else. So at the moment it's sitting on the shelf and I'm just waiting to hear a release date, but I'm very proud of that series. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy the 2nd season.
And you played Detective Holt, correct?
Yep. I played Detective Holt, and they wrote me a wonderful, wonderful character, and I'm very involved in that 2nd season after only doing a bit, one quick blip in the 1st season. but they liked what I did in the first season, so they expanded my character and gave me a really great role. So very proud of it, and I hope you guys get to see it soon. The other ones I'm working on, I have 2 reality shows, one of which I helped create and develop, and another one that one of my very best friends helped to develop. And we have people looking at those right now, different production companies as well as distributors. So fingers crossed. They're both kind of unique ideas for the reality. It's not your usual just recycled reality stuff. So that's, I think, why we're getting interest. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you guys more about that soon. And then I have a series called The Giant.
Oh, wow.
That I am tied into as well. They are supposed to start filming, I believe, in the summer. I don't have a confirmed film date, but that's a really cool show. Most of their stuff is online. I'm not on an NDA about that. It's about a rather strapping sheriff in a kind of post-apocalyptic world, sort of a post-apocalyptic. It's interesting. I don't want to say what it might be like, but it's a unique twist on a few things, and I play a really cool character. I'm playing one of the SWAT captains, and I also have 3 movies as well, 2 horror films, besides 3 movies besides Awakening that I'm tied into with 1 lead role and 2 supporting roles, and one of them is one I'm helping to produce on that a friend of mine wrote. So it's a Christmas movie that we're hoping people will really love. So I'm getting involved behind the scenes a little bit. I've been helping my friend with a little bit of script consulting and, tightening up some of their scripts and stuff. And I'm starting to get into the producing side a little bit, trying to get some of these projects I'm involved with moving forwards.
And Jeremy, I think what is really cool is you took a break from acting for a while. Now you've gotten back into it, and it's really cool because, listen, when fans identify somebody as somebody they recognize when they were kids, they see them as kids acting, but they want to kind of see what happened to them as adults and how they're doing and things like that. And I think it's cool for a lot of Growing Pains fans to get to see that, okay, he was Ben Seaver as a kid. Now he's Detective Holt. He's this person. He's that person. He's an adult. And we get to see, how Jeremy Miller has evolved over the years. So I think it's really cool that you've gotten back into it. And even though you took a break from it, you never completely left it.
And I never lost my love for it. I needed a bit of a break. It can be a crazy industry, but I've never lost my love for performing and bringing characters to life. So it's just something I truly, I never even wanted to be, get into the producing side or any of that kind of stuff. I'm only really doing that to help move these projects forward so that I can, get doing what I really love again. So It's great that I have lots of people that remember. I still get calls, that's most of the projects I do right now are somebody from the old days or a good friend calls me up and go, hey, I'm working on this project. We got this part. I think you might be perfect for it. Do you want to take a look at it? And, I have enough people that do that it keeps me busy and keeps me getting in front of the camera as often as I can. So.
Right. And Jeremy, I know, like I said, I mentioned earlier, actor, producer, but also author. What books have you put out there so far?
So I wrote a dual biography with a very good friend of mine. Dr. Brandon Phillips was a wish kid. He was granted a wish back in, I want to say 87 or 88. And he had a terminal heart condition. He wasn't expected to live to see 20. And out of everything he could have wished for, this kid wished to come to the set to meet me. He had this connection to my character, and, he had a really hard life, and he wanted what Ben had. He wanted that family, and he wanted nothing more than to come to LA to meet me. And that was one of the biggest honors of my life. And this kid and I just formed this huge friendship, and we had a blast that day, and we kept in touch for a long time afterwards. And he credited that day with turning his life around, because until then he'd been told he was going to die before 20, had nothing to look forwards to. He was he had a learning disability, so he wasn't a real good student. He just really had nothing going on. And he made a decision that day. And he said, coming to meet me inspired him to do this, that he was going to turn his life around and work for something no matter what. And he made a decision to become a doctor treating kids with problems like he had. And not only did he survive because he had a procedure that at the time was completely cutting edge that saved his life, but he went on to become a pediatric cardiologist treating children who have the exact same type of conditions that he had been born with. And he's one of the best in his field. He's an amazing man. And he credited that to me. So when I was in the midst of my alcoholism and I was at my lowest, he was crucial in getting me help and saving my life. And it's incredibly rare that a wish kid gets to turn around and actually save his wish. It's never happened in the history of Make-A-Wish or Starlight. And he literally saved my life. And then as we got to know each other more and we were reconnected after high school, we learned that our lives paralleled each other in these very weird ways. Like our lives were insanely similar, even though he was a kid from a small town in Louisiana that had one stoplight, and I was a kid from Hollywood. Our lives were amazingly similar. So one day he was being given the key to his city, and he asked me to come, and his church asked him to speak, and he asked if I'd get up with him and if I'd tell our story with him. And we did, and when we got done, literally every person in the church came by afterwards and shook our hand and said, "Where can I read the book? Where can I read your story?" So him and I sat down and we wrote it. And it's literally a dual biography. It's about 60% him, 50% me. And it just takes our lives from growing up. I mean, I bared everything. It talks about my, as much as I was legally allowed to, I talked about my abuse when I was young and just the different struggles of growing up in the industry and different things like that. And he laid it bare. His dad abandoned the family on his 5th birthday. His mom was a prison guard who had to work nights. And I mean, it's a really wonderful story. It's very uplifting. It's very inspiring. We both came out the other end of some very hard situations. And that's the thing we hear the most when people read it, is just that they found it incredibly uplifting. And that's what we wanted to do. Nobody gets rich being a first-time author. But the amount of people I've had reach out to us that said this book touched them and helped them made it just completely worth it.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's always good when you could write something that is, definitely true, and you're telling a story that you could tell with a lot of others. And, I'll leave this up to you, Jeremy. You don't have to talk about this, but, I know that with alcoholism, like one of the things that is very tough is, once you commit yourself to recovering and getting help, you can't really touch a drink again. I mean, because it's like anything else. Like once you agree to stop doing it, it's not like, okay, I could have one at a family party. That's it. You can't ever touch a drink. So, just talk to me.
Could I conceivably have one beer and not do anything? It's conceivable, yes. It's conceivable that might not trigger my allergy and make me crave more. Right. But am I willing to risk that, knowing how bad it was, just for a drink? No, absolutely not. I'm not willing to dip my toe in those waters. People have asked me many times, don't you think you could have just one? Yeah, maybe. But the possibility of it going the other way is not worth the risk. I mean, it was bad. I've told people before, in interviews, and it's just many times, I'm very glad I didn't own a weapon back then. I did not own a gun, because I don't know if I'd be here. I had some very low, very dark moments during those times. And it's not worth the risk. That's what it is for me. Could I? Yeah, it's possible. But it's not a risk I'm willing to take, not for anything. Right. I've rebuilt my relationship with my fiance and my boys, and my boys actually want to be around me now. I was never violent or abusive physically, but I was not a pleasant person to be around. I was mean. I was angry. And, I yelled a lot, and I was not someone my boys wanted to be around most of the time when I was like that. And now my boys want to spend time with me. This last year, my boys surprised me and flew out from where they're living to come visit me in LA and stay with me for my birthday for a week. And then my middle son decided, hey, I'm going to stay for a couple extra weeks. And we got to do a bunch of things together. And, they never wanted to do that with me before, and I couldn't blame them. I wasn't somebody I wanted to be around.
Right. But I think what's remarkable, Jeremy, is you recognize that you needed to get the help, and that's never easy. And they always say that's the first step. But
absolutely.
You seem happier now than maybe I ever. Now, I didn't know you, but just I'm saying, like in general, as a young kid on a successful series, you seem at your happiest right now than you've ever been. And to me, it's the old saying, doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. And, in 2026, you're living the life that you always imagined.
Absolutely. It's, I know, am I on a, hit sitcom at the moment, or am I, doing movies with Leo all the time? Right. And no, I'm not. But yeah, I'm happier than I've ever been. I've got more serenity and contentment in my life on a daily basis than I've ever had, even back then. Back then I was filled with anxiety all the time. I was a nervous wreck. I was dealing with, trauma and all sorts of things. And, I've worked on those things. I've done the work, as they say, and that's what happens in recovery. And, it's every day just trying to get a little bit better. So yeah, this smile's real. It's not forced anymore. It's not, it's just, I'm very happy where I am in my life. And, the only thing I could ask for is, yeah, I'd love to be able to work more, just to be able to practice and do my craft more. I still get great opportunities. I'm not struggling, but, doing it more consistently would be awesome, just so I could do what I love a little more often. I love every chance I get to step in front of the camera.
Right. And, speaking of the camera, Jeremy, one of the things I always thought would be cool to see you do is to kind of do a podcast and go over every episode of Growing Pains and kind of talk about the different things. I was thinking about it. We talked about Meet the Seavers. That would be a perfect name, or even, Bencast or something like that. Is it something that you've ever considered doing or thought about?
It is something I've considered doing. Fans have asked about it as well. It's still a possibility. I haven't shut the door on it at all. It is extremely time consuming to do, and extremely hard, as you know, to get off the ground and to become profitable in any way and to make it worth the amount of time and effort you're putting into it. So right. I have talked to Tracy about doing it, but she's got an incredibly busy life. I've talked, so there is still the possibility, but it's probably not on the table real soon.
Right. And that's totally understandable. It really is. But, I think about this, Jeremy, 1985, the show debuted. So we're talking 41 years ago, and yet it's still on somewhere in the world. It's, it's on streaming networks, and fans still watch it. They still love it.
Hey. I just found out from one of my fans in China that China just put it back on again.
Oh, nice.
And they've had a love affair with Growing Pains since the 90s, when we were one of only 2 American shows that were allowed into China. So, I mean, we are, I'm a beetle in China. It's crazy. Like, I need security. It's really funny. Rather uncomfortable for a guy like me who's never really understood the popularity thing and why people care so much. But yeah, I'm like a beetle. I mean, I've had my clothes actually ripped off in China. So I just found out, yeah, they're playing it again in China. And I think the streaming network Plex is running it on its own channel. So it's on like a 24-hour loop right now. And you can watch like every episode. So it's really cool that it's still.
Yeah, Tubi has it as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still there, and I'm still getting, I still get messages all the time from people telling me how much they still enjoy watching the show and how they're introducing their kids to it and their kids love it. And, that's awesome to hear. And that 41 years later, we're still touching lives. That's pretty awesome.
And I think what's even cool for you, Jeremy, is no matter what happens in your career, say 10 years from now, whenever like somebody, mentions your name or sees your name on Google, wherever it is, it's always going to say Jeremy Miller, most notable for playing Ben Seaver on the popular sitcom Growing Pains. And that's a nice thing to have next to your name. It really is.
Absolutely.
And nobody could ever take that away.
No, and I am incredibly proud of that. I really am. There was a time where I was a bit lost and I didn't have the respect for what we had done that I should have. I was not embarrassed. I mean, I loved our show, but I just didn't have the respect for what we had accomplished and how much we had actually touched and people's lives and, made people's lives a little better. And that's something that I've learned over the years, and it's something I'm insanely proud of.
Right. And just a couple more questions. One I wanted to ask you because I never could get an answer. I look it up on Google, and no matter how I try to type it, you don't get the answer. What was whose idea was it when the theme song was ending to have the guy fall off the roof and yell like that? Because that was always funny. I mean, what was that all about?
So that was actually from our producers, and that was just one of the random silly things that they had done. We had an episode where I had a fantasy, like a war fantasy, and we actually filmed on the back lot in this little war town and had explosions and everything going off, and a guy gets shot and falls from the chapel tower. So the sound he made them laugh so hard that they were like, we're going to make this our tagline. That was it. It was just that simple. Our three producers, Dan Gunselman, Steve Marshall, and Mike Sullivan, they had quirky sense of humor. And if something struck them funny like that, they'd try and Easter egg it in somewhere.
Right. Well, that's really cool. And the final question is, being somebody who has went through some of the hardships you did, what advice would you give to somebody who's going through addiction or is going through something that's hard? It could be any type of, problem that's affecting them and they feel like there is no way out. What's the best advice you could give them?
Best advice I can give is you don't have to do this alone. That's the best advice I can give you, is to reach out to somebody, anybody. If you have family and friends, if you haven't burned all those bridges yet, reach out to them and tell them you need help. Talk to them. Tell them where you're really at. Be honest. None of us were meant to do this life alone. We weren't. We were not designed that way, So reach out, ask someone for help, talk to someone at your church, talk to a doctor, talk to your friend, and the truth is, if you're struggling with addiction, I guarantee you, 20 people who have someone in their family who struggled with addiction, who can help you, who can tell you what to do, who can connect you with somebody who can talk to you about it, who can show you where to go to get help. But you've got to reach out. You've got to make the first move. And like I said, we always feel like, especially men, I mean, we feel like we got to do this alone. We got to, internalize and just get through it. No, none of us were designed that way. We're not. That's what we're learning more and more, is they're unwiring the brain and learning more in science. We were not designed to do this alone. We are designed to feed off of others and to be doing this as a team. So, reach out. Do not sit there and just suffer for no reason. Reach out to anybody anybody you can. Somebody's going to help. Someone's going to reach that hand back out and say, no problem. If you can't find anybody, message me. Look me up on Facebook, look me up on Instagram, shoot me a message. I don't see all of them. I will try, because they come in hundreds sometimes, but I try and get back to everyone. And if you tell me you're really struggling right now and you need someone to talk to, I will get back to you. So reach out. You got to find someone to talk to if you're struggling. And it doesn't have to be addiction. It doesn't matter what you're going through in your life. Talk to someone. Get it out. You don't have to handle it alone.
Well, Jeremy, I think that's wonderful. And I really applaud you, not only as an actor, but as a person, because the thing that is most impressive about you is you recognized the struggles you went through. You knew they were hard, and you even said that you weren't always perfect, that there were times you were difficult to be around, but you never gave up, and that's the most important thing. And you said to yourself you had to get better, you had to, beat whatever you were going through, and you handled it head on. And I really applaud you. And I'm sure that what you just said, reach out to somebody, you did that yourself to get through your struggles.
Absolutely.
And like, I really think that says a lot about you. And people are always going to remember you as that actor from Growing Pains. But I think if people listen to you in different podcasts or different, things they read about you and stuff like that, they get to know that you're a person like everybody else. You're somebody who wakes up in the morning and you have a family and you have all these things in your life. And that, like all of us, you went through stress. You went through some stressful times, and yet you never stopped living. That's the most important thing. You kept going even when it was tough. So congratulations, because I think that's your biggest accomplishment is you not only were successful in TV, but you were successful in life. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that, brother.
Well, thank you. And folks, there he is, the one and only Jeremy Miller. Continue to look at the new projects that are coming out. I really hope that series Angel gets the green light. It sounds like it's going to be great. But Jeremy Miller, tremendous actor, but an even better person. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.